Welcome once again to American Christian or Christian American. If it's your first time, welcome. If you have not seen any of my videos before, or only a couple of videos, I would encourage you to go back to the first ones and check out at least episode 1 and maybe a few others in there, because it's going to give you some background of what I'm talking about. It's going to help you to understand a little bit more of where my evidence has come from, and so that you can put together a complete picture. If you can do it, the first video is up to 7, 8, and 9. Maybe a little slow for you in some ways, but there's good information there, and that's going to help make this channel more clear. So also, if you could hit that subscribe button, it's not like joining. Some channels have join on there, and that has a lot of times where you're going to pay a certain fee, where it's monthly or whatever else, in order to join. Subscribe just allows you to get the videos faster, and it helps the channel grow. As people see more subscribers, they're more interested in the channel perhaps. Also, if you like this video, please push the like button. That helps the algorithm go out there for people to be able to see. And if you want to make a comment, you're welcome to do so. All right, today we've got a few different videos, a couple different videos, and I also did some recording talking about the 13th Amendment. So I'm going to start with that, and then we'll talk, and then we'll get on to the other videos. At the United States Constitution online, you can look this up for yourself, and the 13th Amendment, slavery and involuntary servitude. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. I want you to pay attention to this. Neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for the crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. We're going to talk about this. So it's very important for us to look at this video I made of reading the 13th Amendment. Because what we have to understand in this country is white supremacy and racism is very strategically planned out. That these people have made lies upon lies upon lies upon lies in order to solidify their power, in order to make sure that people will always believe that white people are superior and they belong in charge, and that other people are inferior and perhaps not even worth being called a human being. As the Constitution itself called the slaves, which were African Americans, they weren't called that at that time, of course, 3/5 of a person. They gave them credit to being any part of a person because they could add up to 3/5 and get more political power in the state that they were in. But it certainly didn't give those people who they were adding up their 3/5 of value any say-so in what happened in their lives. So white supremacy has been around forever. And there always seem to be ahead of the next step of what they can do. Or if they're not ahead of it, they come up with a new idea to continue the assault against African Americans in this country and other people, Native Americans and others. Native Americans and African Americans have had the blunt of racism in this country, but there are others who have been influenced by it. And too many times Latinos think that they're closer to being white, but they're not treated that way. We can see under Trump that they're being expelled because this country wants to maintain white power. And Latinos coming to this country actually is helping to drain that power away, to make white people a minority rather than majority. So Trump wants to get rid of as many people as possible in order to at least postpone the loss of white power. And I believe that at that point they would try to do as an apartheid government did. So they're going to try to do as much as they can. And getting rid of democracy is one of the things that they can do. Now, looking at the 13th Amendment, we can look that this was already planned out, where they said it is now against the law or against the Constitution to have slaves or involuntary servanthood, except unless they are except when they are convicted of a crime. And as we're going to talk about, that is easy to alter by making the justice system racist and keeping it unbalanced so you can get as many African Americans, especially African American men, in jail. So now you have more African Americans in jail today than you did in all of slavery. So once you go into the system, you lose your political ability to vote. You are disenfranchised, taken away with the right that was fought for you to have. So you no longer have a political say. So we have 1 in 3 African American men, in perhaps even rising, are caught up in the system. And what we do is we keep the neighborhoods down, we keep the finances messed up for African Americans, enforce segregation, keep public transit deleted or low, like they're doing in Louisville, not funding it so they can cut service and maintain the pressure on keeping African Americans down in the area. We continue to propagate racism and white supremacy, as they do in Kentucky and other states, really all over the country, but some of the states are off the chain ridiculous, like the Louisville transit system, known as Transit Authority for River City. They don't want to raise the funding that was voted on, but they don't want to raise it, so they have to have another vote. So they have to cut service to keep it down, and this prevents people from having a possibly a good job.
During the 1980s, while Reagan was on TV talking about being tough on crime, and Nancy was all up in her red suit saying, just say no, the Reagan administration was secretly selling weapons to Iran and funneling the profits to a rebel group in Nicaragua. They were called the Contras. Congress had made it illegal for the government to sell them any arms, but they did it anyway off the books. Meanwhile, some of the people working with the Contras were smuggling cocaine into the U.S., and a lot of that coke ended up in black neighborhoods in the form of crack. The CIA knew, and they didn't stop it. Once the crack hit the streets, they didn't take any action to stop the Contras. They didn't send help for the communities being targeted. They didn't invest in any treatment for victims. They declared war on the people most affected, the war on drugs. In 1986, Congress passed a law that punished crack offenses 100 times more harshly than powder cocaine. That meant that possessing 5 grams of crack got you the same prison time as possessing 500 grams of powder. And of course, crack cocaine was used more often by black people, and powder cocaine was the fancy drug of white folks. The damage done to the people by the different forms of the drug was the same. The punishment was not. By the 1990s, 1 in 3 black men in their 20s was under some kind of criminal supervision. Families were torn apart. Whole communities were destabilized. But the people who helped fund the Contras, some of whom were convicted felons, caught lying to Congress, destroying evidence, and breaking the law, for their part in the whole mess, they got presidential pardons. Meanwhile, black people were getting decades in prison for holding a few rocks of crack. The government guys broke the law in their suits and ties, and black communities paid for it in handcuffs and funerals. We cannot talk about the mass incarceration problem in the United States without talking about how it started. And if we care about justice now, we've got to understand how deep the injustice goes.
FBI had a file on a 20-year-old that was over 4,000 pages long. His name was Fred Hampton, and J. Edgar Hoover called the Black Panthers the greatest threat to the internal security of the country at the time. Hoover identified Hampton specifically as a future messiah who could unify and electrify the oppressed people of this country. They had informants in his inner circle. They were watching him every day, and Fred Hampton knew it. So what did he do? He doubled down. What terrified the FBI the most was not the guns or his speeches. It was a meeting that should never have been possible. Chicago, 1969. Black Panthers in their black berets and leather jackets, sitting across from poor white Southerners, the Young Patriots they were called, and they had Confederate flag patches. And in between them, the Puerto Rican Young Lords. America was literally burning over race at the time, and Fred Hampton was building what was called the Rainbow Coalition, bringing together people of all oppressed colors. Hampton had this amazing ability to get people to see past what they'd been taught to hate. Basically, he could unpropagandize them. He told the white kids from Appalachia, we're going to fight racism, not with more racism, but instead with solidarity. He negotiated truces between Chicago's most violent street gangs and got them working together on community programs that benefited the city as a whole. While the FBI was building their case against Hampton, Hampton was building the free breakfast program and feeding thousands of hungry children every morning before school because the schools wouldn't do it themselves. The government eventually copied it because it worked so well. Practical solutions that help everybody are dismissed as radical until they prove undeniable. And the creator of that was 20 years old. Hampton was excellent at showing other poor, oppressed people that their enemies were not each other. They were on the same level. Their enemies were way up there. Sounds familiar? It should. Well, guess what they did next? On December 4th, 1969 at 4:45 a.m., Chicago police coordinated with the FBI and shot over 99 gunshots into Hampton's apartment with his pregnant girlfriend inside of it as well. He'd been drugged by an FBI informant and died that night. Fred Hampton was 21 years old when he was murdered by the FBI. And the Rainbow Coalition died with him that night. Not because the idea was wrong, but because the idea took so much bravery to stand in a room with people who hated you and say, I am not your enemy. You are not my enemy. The enemy is this person up here who is telling us that we are each other's enemies. Does that sound familiar to you too? 56 years later, we are still dealing with the same bullshit coming from up top, telling us to hate one another because you look different, because you act different, because you like to sleep with different people. But more of us are becoming wise to these lies that are spread every day on our phones, on our TVs, in our culture. It is inescapable. But the propaganda is starting to fail. And a new crop of politicians that would make Fred Hampton proud are lining up to run for something. Rest in peace.
We looked at a couple of different videos here. One, we're talking about the fact that the war on drugs created by Reagan, an extremely racist president, they allowed drugs to come into the communities, destabilizing the communities. They've had a law that makes crack cocaine much more punishable as opposed to powder cocaine. And Democrats and Republicans, both alike, have not wanted to change that law. They want to keep it that way because both Democrats and Republicans, not all, have been extremely racist. And they want to maintain the power of white people. Even in opposition to Charlie Kirk, only a couple of white Democrats voted and opposed the martyr status, the way they were talking about Charlie Kirk in Congress. So Democrats are not pure from this. In fact, we really need to reform the Democratic Party, but people are not connected to corporations being paid off. A lot of them are not much better than Republicans. Some are worse. So if you look in these two videos, all this was created in order to keep people down. They put drugs in the community, which messed people up in the first place. Then you get African American men, especially some women, but especially African American men getting hooked on crack, which is punishable way more than their white counterparts who may be taking powder. Now, some whites may rack up crack and the same thing, but now you take these men and put them in jail for decades, and you take away the potential of fathers in the community. You create a household where only one income is coming in, and that income, the person may have to work at 2 or 3 jobs, and then they're not as present to take care of the children, and so the children run the streets, and guess what? They get involved in crack cocaine and other things, get arrested and put in the system. And also you're taking away the rights of these people to vote. So it goes on and on. They can't vote, so they can't oppose legislation that's out there. They lose political power, they lose control. So welcome back slavery. Many of these prisons are becoming private prisons where they're making a profit. Big corporations being involved, paying off. I mean, these corporations make profit off these men who are basically slaves because the Constitution allowed it. In the same time they freed the slaves, they also set up a plan to re-enslave them. This country has nothing, no honorability, or that's not even a word, but there's no honor here. This country is a racist, white supremacist nation. It was not founded on great morals. It was founded upon evil. Are there all evil people and all white people in this country? No, there are white people who care. The vast majority of Caucasians in this country don't care about black people, and the vast majority of these people, a large portion of them, would do harm. That's a statement that was made in Kentucky. Okay? So, by John Marshall, he got persecuted for it. I'm going to say it. You go ahead, try to persecute me for it. It's the truth. Now, there are ranges of doing harm, from actual physical violence to passing legislation to do harm, to actually belittling and calling people names, or to being a large group of people who just don't have the time to bother. I'm sorry, but you're just as racist because you don't care enough and you're going to allow other people to be hurt because your life's okay. And many of these people also, they don't really associate with African Americans. They, somewhere deep down they're not as good as them, but they might find somebody who's, or you're a good one, or you're articulate, meaning you stand out from the rest of them who are less than me. And even then, do they really consider them an equal? Well, there are Caucasian people who care. There are Caucasian people who know this is wrong and willing to stand up for it. I'm one of them. But I've used other videos and I see other people who are standing up and making this fight. Jane Elliott, Tim Wise have been big people in this, and there's other people too. And there are other people maybe not making as big of a noise, but they're doing some things. If you aren't doing anything, you are just as much of a racist because you're backing the whole system. You're afraid to make a change? Well, think about the people who have to go through this and are oppressed. And if you're poor and white, you're going down with the ship too because they don't care about you either. It's time that you make a difference. At least somebody tells a joke. Say it's not funny because it shouldn't be to you. Do something that matters. Make a difference. Be something different. Try small things. You might grow from there, or if nothing else, you're doing something positively. Go outside your comfort zone. Actually care. And if you're a Christian, Matthew 25 talks about what we do to other people is what we do to Jesus. And if you aren't taking the time to care about other people, you don't care about Jesus. And you won't see heaven. Because you have to care about, that's the whole point of Jesus' ministry, is he loves us and cares for us and redeems us. But we have to care about other people. We have to become like him. Until the next time, on American Christian or Christian American.